stepping out of his torso or anything, but a lot of the other depictions do show that. For example, typical man, he's still sleeping through it. All right. I say that full honor of my brothers. Anyway, so when she's created, then he says, at last, this one is bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. This one is human like me, essentially like me. You know? So, back to the helpmate idea, though. As you can see in Genesis 2:18, it's God, God's self, saying, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper," or in older translations, a helpmate, fit for him. Now, that word, that Hebrew word, is used in a bunch of other places in the Hebrew Bible, and often it refers to God. And sometimes it refers to military situations. Because the wider meaning, well, let's just take a look at these two samples here. "Hear, O Lord, and be gracious to me. O Lord, be thou my helper," or helpmate, same word. Also from the Psalms, which is like the prayer book of the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament. "Behold, God is my helper. The Lord is the upholder of my life." So, this Hebrew root, this word means to surround, to protect, to aid, to support, whether that's in battle or in a relationship. Do you see anything that is subordinate in this? Me neither. It's what happens when we take a translation and then we read it in the context of our own times. And that's not always a bad thing, but it is when it means that we are manipulating other people on the basis of our faulty assumptions. So Genesis 2:17, where they're told, Adam is told, Eve hasn't been created yet, "You can eat anything from the Garden of Eden except the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat it, for in that day you shall surely die." Okay, I love this one. It's like, it doesn't say in the text that Adam was there while Eve was being tempted, but it's like he's there to say, "Look at her. Whoa, what are you doing here? What are you doing?" You know, clearly it's not exactly how the text reflects the incident. Okay, and by the way, important point for later, that the serpent or snake is often anthropomorphized as well in art. Now, Tertullian, early church father from the 2nd century, tells an audience of female listeners, "You are the devil's gateway on account of your desert, that is, your punishment for sin, that is death. Even the Son of God had to die." Christ had to die because of your sin, ladies. That's what he's saying. Because of that, his interpretation of that passage about Eve. Okay. In the Middle Ages, Christian art frequently shows the serpent as a woman. So not only is the tempted woman, the tempter is a woman. Okay? Again, highlighting the seduction aspect of it, the connection to Eve. And then a couple of other early church fathers, Clement of Alexandria, 2nd, 3rd century CE, and Eusebius of Caesarea, do look at Chava, or Cheva, it's transliterated in different ways, that's Eve's name, of course, as the proper name, but sometimes translated as female serpent. And here's some examples of the feminization of the serpent in the garden. Right? Looks like, I think I saw that movie, actually. It was the creature from the Black Lagoon kind of thing. Anyway, but I'll show you another one in a moment. But anyway, there's also a connection between Eve and Lilith. Lilith is a figure from Jewish mythology and folklore. The character is really fleshed out at the time of the Babylonian Talmud, which is when early Jewish law started to expand on the written law, became oral law, and eventually commentaries were written. That was written down, commentaries written on that. All this is to say that Torah in the Bible for Jews is a living thing, and it's an interpretive process through history. And around 600, there's a massive, massive collection that was written up and exists today in many, many volumes called the Talmud, commentaries on the oral laws. Okay. Anyway, there are also stories there, midrash, expansions of biblical stories to make a point. And that's where she first really is discussed in more detail. But it's rooted, we think, because of the name. It connects with a Mesopotamian word in texts from Assyria and Babylonia, which name a particular supernatural class of female demons. So in the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament, there's only one mention of the word Lilith, and that is in the book of Isaiah. And by the way, if there's just one mention, we call that a hapax legomenon, which means really said only once, literally in Greek. So that's the only mention in the Bible, and it's not quite clear what we're supposed to make of it. It's in a list of wild animals. And just last night I checked another translation of it because I was looking at the Hebrew dictionary, and then I looked at that and it said screech owl. Just saying. In Isaiah 34:14. Okay, Jewish folklore from the 8th to 10th century makes Lilith. This is in the retelling, the Midrash, which is so fun. I really think that's a cool thing about the Jewish tradition. Sorry, let me just back up 1 second and tell you. Like when the second temple was destroyed, the temple that was standing at the time of Jesus was destroyed in 70, the year 70 by the Romans. Of course, that imprinted itself on the Jews and changed the character of Judaism forever. But as the years went on, stories began to develop about the person who did the destroying, which was the Roman general Titus, later to become emperor. Well, they said Titus, because of what he did, was tortured by God, who sent a gnat into his ear canal, and it started to buzz around, and he went crazy. He put his ear next to a blacksmith to sort of make the noise, hopefully scare it out. Then they tried different hot and cold liquids, and eventually he went insane, and he died because of what he did. Well, Titus didn't die that way at all, but it's sure fun to tell a story saying, God's just, he'll get his, or did get his in some way. Anyway, so the Jewish folklore, 8th, 9th century, makes Lilith the first wife of Adam. So when Adam is created out of the dust, there's a female created at that point, and that's Lilith. That's how the story began to evolve, right? But that means Eve was Adam's second wife and created out of, or Adam's rib, of course, unlike Lilith. And Lilith mates with an archangel. You can do anything with these stories. And then refuses to take orders from Adam. That's not good. Wasn't then. So my question to you, what do you think from what I've said so far? Was it Eve's fault? Well, let's just see. Was it Eve's fault? Yes!
Although if Adam didn't tell her.
Oops, how come this is going this way? Just a minute. There we go. Yes?
If Adam didn't tell her, then it's Adam's fault.
And Adam's. And the snakes. Each of them made a choice, right? And when God says, earlier on as we saw, you can eat of any fruit of any of the trees except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I like to give the example in class of if, for example, you have a little kid in the household and you're making cookies. Did your mother ever make you cookies? All right? And she says, now, don't touch these.
Oh.
Because the moment you leave, the little hand could go over the counter. Like say you go into another room, little hand could go over and take it. And she might be telling you that for your own good. You'll spoil your supper, you'll burn your little hands, whatever. But she's telling that to, let's say, the 3 or 4-year-old or 5-year-old. Why? Because they can, right? They can decide. They can decide to do that. You wouldn't say that if they wouldn't do it. It presumes free will from the start. And that's what's going on here, that each of them exercised free will. And so in chapter 3, each is given a punishment, or punishments, I should say. And surprisingly, or not, those punishments reflect life as it was now known in the 900s when J was being written. That is, a life that is primarily agriculturally based in ancient Israel, a life in which there is no social welfare system, where life is fragile and you simply have to get by hard work and hope that you stay healthy, a life that involves childbearing and a lot of infant mortality. Anyway, so we have some of those punishments being meted out by God to each of them in chapter 3. So God said, I should start with this. This is chapter 3, verse 8. Now they heard the sound of Yahweh, or God, who was walking about in the garden at the breezy time of the day. By the way, I love this translation. If any of you are interested and want to get a better sense of the Hebrew beyond the ordinary English translation, there's several volumes encompassing the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament called the Schocken Bible, Schocken, and I do not get a commission for saying this. But anyway, that tries to render the original Hebrew in as accurately as possible in English, but that means awkward at times too. But you see the emphases in Hebrew more easily. Anyway, but clearly God is shown as anthropomorphic, walking around like a human in the garden, trying to find out what they've been up to. And then when discovering that they have eaten of that tree, God says to Adam, who told you, oops, sorry. I was back to the nudity again. Okay. We've all had enough of that, right? All right, from here. You heard, Yahweh said to the human, called to the human and said to him, where are you? He said, I heard the sound of you in the garden and I was afraid because I am nude, so I hid myself. He said, who told you that you are nude? From the tree about which I command you not to eat, have you eaten? The human said, the woman whom you gave me. This is the French thing. You know, the French have an old saying, cherchez la femme, which means look to the woman. In the original sense, it was behind every good man, there's a woman, you know, that sort of old thing, you know. Except they would use it sometimes as a guy lying in the gutter, you know, it's like, cherchez la femme, you know. So it's like, blame the woman, right? So the woman whom you gave to be beside me, she gave me the tree, so I ate. Yahweh God said to the woman, what is it that you have done? The woman said, the snake enticed me. It's the blame game down the line. So I ate it.